Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 21 of our reading of Guinevere by Sharan Newman. And as always, we're going to go over the copyright information. Just let me switch hands here. This says copyright 1981 by Sharan Newman, and I have written permission by the author to read this book on my YouTube channel. Also, I do have to say that Guinevere here, also the second book, The Chessboard Queen, and the third book, Guinevere Evermore, are all for sale at major book retailers, and you should check that out if you want to purchase your own copy of the book. It is a very good book and been a joy to read. Anyways, in the last chapter, Guinevere and Arthur were engaged, so to speak, and I believe that's all that really actually happened. And we are going to continue from there. Guinevere thought only, there is something very nice about him. He makes me want to do something for him, like reminding him to wear his cloak when it rains. Since there were no clouds in the sky, Guinevere settled for reminding him that it was time to eat and suggested that they join the others in the dining hall. Arthur thought it was the most wonderful idea he had ever heard, and they went happily in to be greeted by cheers and congratulations from everyone there. The next day, Mark drew her aside and surprised her by giving her a hearty kiss. "Thank you, Guinevere. I know you will be very happy, and now maybe I will be too." He grinned. The unscarred side of his face looked almost like himself again. "Mark, what are you talking about? Little sister, I could kiss you." "You already did. Please explain what is going on. Don't you see? Your nuptials are far more important and welcome than mine. Mother and father and all those people will stop tormenting us and concentrating on their plans for you. Poor Elswitha has been worn out by all this nonsense, especially about her being baptized and our living back the villa and all that. She never wanted it, and neither do I." "Mark, do you mean you would marry her without her becoming a Christian? That's dreadful." "Oh, is it? Being a Christian wouldn't make her one iota different than she is now. It wouldn't make her kinder or more gentle or more loving. Why should I care which God she believes in? But what about eternity? We have already lived through eternity. Elswitha and I have each done our time in hell. I have no fears about that. I don't understand all you are saying, but perhaps you are right. But if you don't plan to marry and live with father and mother, what will you do?" Mark took her face between his hands. If everyone in the world were like you, my precious, I might stay here and live contentedly. But since that is not the case, I am taking Elswitha away to the most remote haven I can find, somewhere quiet and peaceful and empty, where I need never see another weapon or hear another scream of pain. Guinevere pulled from his grasp. He had unconsciously tightened his hands on her jaw and pressed until he hurt her. He dropped his arms with a guilty start. "There, I could even hurt you. That is yet another reason why I must remove myself from this place. There is still so much anger and hatred within me. I could not stay, as Arthur does, and deal with fools. He is a good man, Guinevere. He would never hurt you as I just did." "Of course not." Guinevere was shocked at the thought. "That is why he is the one to continue this governance. He has the patience to rebuild brick upon brick until he achieves his purpose. I do not. If I stay here another day, I may just go mad." His voice was so quiet that she almost missed the last word, but the ferocity was obvious. She had thought that she might find her brother again, but now she knew that if he still existed, it would take years to find him beneath the layers of bitterness and pain. "But how will you live, Mark? You know nothing of planting or building. You can't just wander away to some cave and live. Even the hermits and saints keep bees or gather whelks or something to survive." "I know that, but I will learn. I know an excellent teacher. It just amazes me that I didn't think of it sooner. We could have been away days ago." "All right," Guinevere gave in. "If you must go, then do. But couldn't you and Elswitha wait until after I am married? I want you to be there, please." He chewed the corner of his lip, considering. "I heard someone say that it wouldn't be until winter." She nodded. the calends of January. Mother thinks there is so much to be done first. People to contact, provisions to order, the ceremony to arrange. It's really very exciting. He shuddered. I can't stay here until then. Wait. This is what we will do. We can go find the teacher I told you of and stay there until the time comes. Guinevere, I want to leave as soon as possible without question or explanation. Will you help? Can you tell Elswitha to make a bundle of her things and then tomorrow morning lower them down to us? We will be in the courtyard below your window. Yes, if you wish, but won't you tell me where you are going? Don't worry, I promise we will be back to see you wed. If you must contact me, ask Geraldus to send a message. He will know how. So early the next morning, a bleary-eyed Guinevere let down a small bundle of clothes and combs, mostly her own, for Elswitha. Below, in the courtyard, the couple waited. Mark carefully untied the bundle, hitched Elswitha on his horse, and prepared to go. Tell father I will leave the horse at the farm of Rice's family. I want nothing that is not my own. Mark hissed up at her. Thanks. Thank you, my dear sister. We promise to return, don't worry. They both waved up at her with such radiant smiles that she felt certain that they were doing the right thing. She absently wondered where they were going, that they wouldn't need a horse, but she was really too sleepy to care. She stumbled back to her own warm bed and burrowed down into the covers. She was not so sure about what she had done later that morning when Geraldus told her that her parents wanted to see them both immediately. Guinevere, how could you let them go like this? Gwendolyn protested. And you, Geraldus, you tell us that you knew about Mark's plan? What were you thinking of not to tell us then? Are we monsters that we would try and keep our son prisoner? She wept angrily as she tried to chastise them. Leodegrance intervened. Never mind, my dear. We just want to know why they felt they needed to sneak away from us. We thought we had done everything possible to make Mark happy. We accepted the girl. Difficult though it was, we asked nothing of him. We were going to give them such lovely things at their wedding, Gwendolyn sniffed. She was still fighting tears. She felt such a fool. Geraldus didn't know how to begin. He loved Leodegrance and Gwendolyn almost as if he were one of their own. He understood how they felt, but he understood even more how Mark felt. It was peculiar how the most astute people could be so blind regarding their own children. He remembered his own parents. They still didn't understand why he roamed about the country instead of settling in with some pleasant religious community. Mark is not the same man he was even a few years ago, he began gently. He can't forget any of his scars. Every time he blinks his eye, every time he moves his mouth, he feels the pulling of the twisted skin. Each time it reminds him of the deeper wounds which will not heal. Even before he was captured, Mark was near to breaking, and when it was all too much for him, you are lucky that he found Elswitha. She is all that is keeping him from madness. We know that, Leodegrance said. That is why we tried to be so careful with him, to agree with his wishes, even to take his Saxon bride into our home, no matter what it cost us. Guinevere put her arms around her mother, but he didn't want that, he told me. He only wanted peace and solitude, and no memories. Elswitha wanted that also, not just for him, but for herself, I think, she added, with one of her rare perceptions. I think she is as beaten as he, mother. They did promise to come back and see me wed. Gwendolyn twisted her hands uncontrollably. I don't understand. I was so close to him. I love him so. How could he have changed like this? There was no answer to give her, but Guinevere tried to reassure. He still loves us, mother. Please, don't cry. Perhaps when he returns things will be better. Guinevere fought a kind of panic, much as she had felt on that horrible night when she had known that her brothers were dead. Her mother was her source of strength, a firm, cool, calm center in spite of all chaos whirling about them. Guinevere could not bear to see her trembling so, fighting tears and anger. When Gwendolyn spoke again, there was a bitterness in her voice that no one had ever heard before. Never mind, Guinevere. We will continue with our plans for your wedding, if you do not object. You might care to remember in your extreme sympathy, Geraldus, that Mark is not the only person who has had much to withstand. I will talk of this no more. She stalked away from them. Leodegrance watched her go, and then, with a strangled cry, buried his face in his hands. Guinevere gently patted his shoulder, but he pushed her away. "Not now, daughter. Leave me alone." She turned to Giraldus for some clue as to what to do next, but he only raised his hands in defeat. Finally, as Leodegrance did not lift his head or give any indication that he knew they were there, Giraldus gently led Guinevere away. Out in the courtyard, they came upon Gawain practicing his standing spear thrusts. He was tearing a pile of leather and pillows to ribbons. He stopped when he saw them and hurried over. "Is it true that you are to marry Arthur?" he panted. "Everyone tells me so," she assented. Then you must speak to him about my joining him. He said something before, but I think he has forgotten. Then I could see you all the time. We could still play chess and sing and go riding together. Tell me you will speak with him, please." "If you want me to, Gawain, but why can't you do it yourself? You're the one who knows all the reasons why you are so wonderful. I could never remember the technical terms for all the swordplay and your other maneuvers. Guinevere, I can't just go up to him and say, 'Here I am, the greatest fighter in the world.' Why not? You say it to everyone else." Guinevere asked this in honest surprise, but Gawain thought it a very funny riposte. So did Giraldus. Guinevere tried to divert Giraldus to another topic. "Have you heard that Arthur has finally learned of his parentage? Merlin has told him that he is the son of Uther Pendragon and Igraine, his wife. Isn't that strange? Everyone thought they had no children." Gawain was certainly diverted. He grabbed her arm roughly and said, "Are you sure about that?" he demanded. "Of course. Let me go. Arthur told me himself. He wanted me to know, for some reason, and that his ancestry was as good as mine. But Guinevere, don't you remember? Igraine was my grandmother. If Arthur is her son, then we are relations. Let me see. Good Lord. He would be my uncle. Guinevere, you're going to be my aunt." "That's not funny, Gawain. It's ridiculous. You are a year older than I am. How could I be your aunt?" "You don't know my family. Arthur is only 8 or 9 years older than I am. So what?" Gawain chortled. "Now he must let me join him. I have blood right." He pranced around in delight, waving his spear at a dangerous angle. "This can't be true," Guinevere insisted to Giraldus. "It seems logical to me," Giraldus replied. "Igraine's daughters from her first marriage are almost grown when she married Uther." Gawain, "Stop that. You nearly hit my ear." "All right, I believe you, and I will speak to Arthur, but if you ever call me Auntie Gwen, I will personally expel you from the court. Do you understand?" Gawain dropped the weapon and swung Guinevere around a few times instead. "I promise, oh Aunt-to-be, but you must see Arthur at once today. Now, I will not wait any longer." Guinevere sighed. "Yes, if it will appease you. I think he is in a conference with Merlin and Cador now, but as soon as I see him, I will tell him all about you." Gawain gave her a loud kiss on the cheek and retrieved his spear, dancing off again to further damage his practiced target. Guinevere found Arthur a little later. He greeted her with shy friendliness, as if he were still not sure that she would like him. She told him first of what Mark had done, and was relieved that he agreed with her that it was right to let them go. Old Ael might have been demented to send someone like Alswitha as hostage. I knew from the moment I took charge of her that she was too delicate to be treated so. They may never be able to live with other people again. I'm sorry, though. I needed him. This reminded Guinevere of Gawain's request, and she explained it to Arthur along with the relationship, which she thought would amuse him. She was startled, though, when Arthur rudely interrupted her. "What is Gawain's mother's name?" "Morgan, wife of King Lot. She is the daughter of your mother from her first marriage. Isn't that correct? She would be your half-sister and Gawain your nephew, Arthur. What is the matter? Where are you going?" "Merlin," he called over his shoulder. "I must find Merlin." Guinevere sat for a long time trying to understand what had just happened, but she could find no answer. She hoped he didn't do this often. It could be very disconcerting in a husband. Arthur found Merlin easily. He was relaxing by the hearth and chatting with Sidra and Cador. He had a cup of wine and was beginning to think that things might, after all, turn out nearly as he had planned when Arthur descended upon him and dragged him away without even greeting Cador. Merlin was about to scold, but Arthur gave him no chance. "Why didn't you tell me Morgan Le Fay was my sister?" he whispered fiercely. "Morgan? Yes, she is. What of it? You need not have anything to do with her, although I suppose we must invite her to this wedding of yours. I will put her on the list. What of it? I don't want to have anything more to do with her. Why did you have to keep me so ignorant? Do you remember the year we wintered in Cornwall, and you left me with those hermits?" "Yes, of course. You were about 16 then." Morgan fancied herself a patroness of the group. She often visited us in the afternoon when most of the holy men were at prayer or meditation. Oh my gosh. Merlin seemed to shrink inside his robes. "Don't tell me any more. I think I've known her far too long. No, don't make excuses. Everyone knows Morgan. If anyone is to blame, I am for not taking her into consideration. That woman, she was almost twice your age then. She is disgusting. No sense of propriety. But Merlin, it was incest." "Yes, I know. An old Roman custom also, but not one likely to be revived today. Have you seen her since then?" Arthur shook his head emphatically. "Then try to forget it. You acted in ignorance, and certainly no one who has ever dealt with Morgan would censure you. She may have forgotten the incident herself. You were nothing to her then. It may have been a dull winter. Now calm yourself and return to your betrothed. You seem to have left her rather abruptly." Arthur was somewhat reassured and hurried back to excuse himself to Guinevere, but Merlin's peace of mind was shattered. He knew Morgan Le Fay too well to think she would fail to remember Arthur. He also knew the twisted bitterness she felt against Uther and himself. This wasn't the end of the matter, he was sure. He returned to the fire and automatically poured some more wine. "Dear Lord," he prayed, although to whom he wasn't sure, "can't you make something happen between now and the calends of January?" Spring was in radiant form 2 weeks later as a man and a woman slowly climbed the narrow path through the forest. They did not seem fatigued by the walk, only not very interested in quickly getting to their destination. To them the world was a rainbow of green, gold, brown, and blue. A delicate mist seemed to float around them. The natural elements were doing their best to measure up to the high opinion the couple had of them, but at the stage they had reached, raging winds and hail wouldn't have worried them greatly. Elswitha and Mark had found their haven in each other and knew that nothing could ever harm them again. "Would you rather have waited for a proper marriage?" Mark asked. Would the words of any man make me more or less your wife than I am now?" Elswitha replied, smiling. "I can think of no ceremony that would not seem a sacrilege to my love for you. It is so far beyond anything mortal man could hope to know." Elswitha knew that, but she enjoyed listening to him say so. "Would you like me to learn to read?" she asked. "If you wish it. Would you like me to learn to fly?" It might entertain our children." "Very well. I will start crafting wings tomorrow." They were so intent upon each other that they almost missed the clearing altogether, and only the deep sound of laughter caused them to stop and notice that they had reached their destination. "Do you intend to pass your old friend by, Mark, simply because you have something better to look at?" Timon's voice boomed. "Or will you stay a while and introduce me to your wife?" Mark was pleased to see that Elswitha was not intimidated by Timon's size. Her slender hand was so pale and fragile in his rough brown paw, but she held it tightly and greeted him with soft pleasure. "You must be Elswitha," Timon grinned. "A lovely name. I've often heard the trees sing it in the evening. So you have come to visit us. Wonderful. We always have room for guests. I haven't had help with the planting since Guinevere stayed with us. Will you stay that long? Perhaps you could even stay with us through the fall and help me brew the mead." "If you'll have us," Elswitha answered, not at all surprised that he knew her name. A man like this must know the secret names of the stars. "Since you are so well informed," Mark added, "you must already have heard of my sister's betrothal to Arthur." "I have," Timon greeted tauntingly, and Gaia and I are even considering attending this event. There has been nothing interesting enough to get me from this mountain for over 20 years. But that may be something worth seeing. But now I have kept you standing here talking after your long walk. You must have a wash and some food. Gaia is out gathering mushrooms now for our dinner. She will be happy to see you both. He lowered his voice as if she were near enough to overhear. Try not to notice how she has aged. We have not seen Ninnius in 2 years now, and word has come that he may have been lost at sea. Another wanderer told us that Ninnius had some kind of rare old manuscript from Egypt that he wanted copied by some Irish scribes. There's some turmoil in Gaul now, what with the Franks practically controlling the entire country, and he decided to sail through the Pillars of Hercules and return by the Atlantic. There has been no word of him since. But I always thought Gaia hated him, Mark said. Timon looked at him in wry amusement. If she had hated him, he replied, she probably would have married him 20 years ago, but then I would have had to find something else to do with my life, not nearly so pleasant as living up here. Please don't mention this. I only told you so that you will be prepared for her and not mind her so much. They promised to be considerate of Gaia, and having gotten that off his mind, Timon proceeded to make them comfortable. It was well that they had been warned, for on Gaia's return, the gaunt sorrow on her face would have shocked them otherwise. As it was, they showed no surprise and spent the evening conversing politely about other matters and making plans for their visit. Timon offered them a corner of the hut to sleep in, but Mark said they would rather lie under the stars since the night was so mild. He did not wish to inconvenience them. Timon smiled with understanding and gave them several thick woolen coverlets and a sort of mattress stuffed with wild herbs and grasses. They took them a little distance from the hut and made their bed. They made up their bed, rather. Much later, Elswitha lay watching the moon rise through the trees. She assumed that Mark was sleeping, but he rose on one elbow and put his arm around her. What are you thinking of? He murmured tenderly. She turned in his arm to embrace him, but then playfully pushed him away. For the moment, not of you. I was worrying about that poor woman in there. I cannot understand how she could purposefully destroy her own happiness. I have known her all my life, but it has never been clear to me either. She wants me to be baptized in your religion, but I do not see how I could accept a faith that could cause such sorrow. The sorrow is in her own making, Wytha. My love, God has nothing to do with it, but you do not need to become a Christian. I have told you this before. There is nothing in you that would deny you entrance into heaven, I am certain, and I want nothing greater to believe in than what I have before me now. She drew him back close to her and felt the warmth of his breath upon her neck. All her life she had heard that the forest night was full of wild beasts and horrible ghouls. The earth itself was a constant battle between forces. None of them cared about the humans involved, but at last she knew that these stories were lies, only fireside tales for children and fools. There would be no more battles for her. Even death could not frighten her. Elswitha had found her place in the universe, and there was a still clear feeling inside her which assured her that she would never be in exile again. Chapter 18. As the months passed and January approached, it became clear to everyone that this was not simply going to be a marriage ceremony or even a union of two houses. It was a political event, a social phenomenon, a rebirth of society. Guinevere, fortunately, had no private plans or wishes about the matter, and so all arrangements were handled by her elders. Only occasionally was she told about the progress of events, then when it was necessary to remind her of what she was to say or do. She didn't care. She had no idea of exactly how much preparation and fuss was going on. The family remained at Cador for a time. The spot on the Saxon shore was better for sending messages and organizing a wide variety of people. Gwendolyn threw herself into the planning with a grim intensity, hoping to forget her disappointment in Mark. It had been agreed that the best place for the nuptials was London. It had not been damaged by Saxon raids. There was a small but thriving community and a church. It was accessible not only by those coming from all over Britain, but to those returning from Armorica. This last group delighted Arthur so much that he was reconciled with his wedding becoming a national event. The emigrants had sent messengers to various families who had immigrated long before, telling them of the new order and requesting them to return for the festivities and to help rebuild Britain into what it once had been. The news came at exactly the right moment for the homesick Britons. The tribes of the Franks had, in the past few years, overrun all of the northern parts of Gaul. Trade had fallen off, and many of the younger members of the families were becoming disenchanted with their self-imposed exile. Each day brought word that another group was returning, at least to survey their old estates and decide if it would be feasible to settle there again. Those who did not wish to see Britain again were eagerly sending younger sons and nephews who had no land of their own and were willing to start again in the abandoned homesteads. Here was the sort of manpower Arthur had dreamed of, educated people who knew the old ways and would accept the old authority. He could hardly wait. His head was so full of plans that he took to wandering about the countryside, talking to anyone who would listen about the new society he would give them. He couldn't stand being kept in the castle doing nothing. When he was back there, he paced the floor like a caged lion. Only Guinevere could calm him. Just looking at her made him feel peaceful and comforted. She radiated serenity, and he bathed in the quiet of it. Every evening he was there, he sat with her and told her again and again of every intricate detail. First the roads would be rebuilt, and then the towns could be linked, and trade would grow, and the government could be established, all of it answerable to and centered at Camelot. Camelot? Where is that? What a strange name. Is it a kind of cloth? No, that's what I meant to call my new city. It isn't built yet, but we will do it together, you and I. I want you to advise me on everything. I found just where it should be, near Glastonbury. Okay. There is a high level hill. There is plenty of room for building and shops there, but the whole thing will rise above the plain. Glastonbury, isn't that rather marshy there? The damp air is not good for the chest, you know. A bit, he admitted, but Merlin has a plan of draining some of the swampy areas and planting grain. Also, it is very defensible. It is a very defensible place, of course. I don't want it to ever need defending, but I still tend to see things from a military viewpoint. That's very sensible of you, she assured him. I shall feel quite safe there. One day he surprised her with a large package. It was a wooden box wrapped in oilcloth and leather to keep it dry. On the cover was a strange design, and she couldn't decipher. With difficulty she pried the lid off. There was more oilcloth inside. She carefully unwrapped it and then stared in wonder at what it revealed. "Oh, Arthur," she breathed. "Is it all right?" he asked worriedly. "I sent for it myself months ago. I didn't tell anyone, for I was afraid it wouldn't arrive. If it's not what you want, I will send it back. I just wanted so much to have something to give you myself." We're going to stop it right here. Find my bookmark. We have been reading Guinevere by Sharan Newman. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, this book is for sale along with the second book in the series, The Chessboard Queen, and the third book, Guinevere Evermore, which I don't have a copy of. But it should be for sale at most online retailers. Anyways, if you want to support me in any way, all that information is in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.